Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Comic Binge. I am your host, Paul Herman, and my internet's going crazy, so I'm just going to go with it. So thank you for so much for coming on here. I'm not sure who's got me blasting, but I'm going to remove everybody just to make sure, because holy smokes. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Comic Binge. Today, we're going to be talking about the great Spider-Man 2099, Miguel O'Hara, and I'm gonna warn you all right now, people. I've got some hot takes about this fellow little superhero here. So if you're stoked for the Across the Spider-Verse, like a lot of us are, then you're gonna be very excited to join us today because we've got a great panel, a very interesting panel of people who maybe I have no idea what their thoughts are of Spider-Man 2099, but I'm excited for Across the Spider-Verse, and I'm also extremely excited to talk about these first 12 issues of Spider-Man 2099, and I am just super excited to bring in my co-host today. I am always going to be playing the head of the of Spider-Verse, you could say. And you see me, I'm very small, so hello everybody. And if you haven't already, I'm just going to tell you right now before I bring everybody in is I'm going to find my stuff here, guys. This is live. This is live, people. That's how we do it. First of all, Steve Rowan, go a hoopla, people. But anyway, first of all, please, if you haven't already, subscribe today. It makes spider sense. Come on, y'all. I really appreciate it. It always helps out a lot. And also, if you guys can go ahead and like the video and all that jazz, that'd be really cool too. And so without further ado, I'll get us kind of going here. And I'll have my first guest here. You know him. You love him. He's on with me with the Spidey Dude Experience. It's Mr. Pizza Time himself. Adam, how are we doing today, sir?
I'm pretty good.
Pretty good.
Yeah.
On a scale of 1 to 10, how excited for you are you for Across Spider-Verse?
Probably like 9, 10. Why not?
Andrew. 9? Really?
I'm not like chomping at the bit, but like I'm looking forward to it.
Andrew, hold on really quick. Andrew, that's really nice of you. I love the new house. That's really awesome. I like this Andrew guy. He's cool.
Yeah.
Anyway, Pizza Time, I'm sorry. Continue your thoughts on this movie real quick.
No, just I'm not like chomping at the bit for it, but I'm looking forward to it, and I think I have the feeling it's going to be really fun and enjoyable, and
okay.
Just a fun time. I don't know.
All right. Oh, hey, don't threaten me with a good time, right? So, all right. We've also got the El Corazon himself, Javi the Heart. How we doing, sir?
I'm doing all right, man. How's everybody out there in the Spider-Verse tonight? Some people are watching the movie right now as we're talking.
Yeah.
And know what's sad is I'm not going to see it until Saturday.
I mean, it could be worse. It could be like next week that you see it.
That's fair.
I might be seeing it next week, honestly.
See, like this is why Javi is here. He brings everything back to reality. So, by the way, special thank you to Javi for promoting the show so much on Twitter. Wow. Like this dude is like the G, man. Like I just am so like I've just been crazy, and I see like all these tweets from him, and I'm like, he's doing a better job of this than I am. So I just want to say thank you so much. So
you're welcome, man. This is your time. This is your episode. You're topical. Maybe not as topical as next month is going to be.
Dude, next month's going to be nutty. Yeah. We'll talk about next month at some point. But last but not least, last but not least is my brother, Mr. Rick Morgan. Hello, Rick.
Hey, hi.
How you doing? And for those who don't know, it's a long story. I was just gonna say that, and me and Rick will tell our story at one point.
At the appropriate time.
At the appropriate time. But right now is not that time. But
one of us is a clone.
Yeah. You could say that. So Rick, you're on your own. You have your own awesome YouTube channel. Why don't you tell people about that?
Yeah. So I have Immaculate Comics, and I mainly talk about restoring and cleaning comic books, but I do interviews like this one about comic book issues, and I also talk about current events in comic books as well. Over at Immaculate Comics on Facebook and on here on YouTube.
And it's crazy, y'all, because we're related, and he's 1,000 times smarter than I'll ever even dream of being. and he figured out. And then I'm not trying to boast you up here, but I'm just gonna say I'm just very amazed and proud that you have created a literal solution, like an actual like solution for to clean comic books. Like that is insane, and people don't understand. Like,
right here.
give him. Can you show him? Can you have any examples really quick? Like, can you show him like anything that's just like laying around that looks like crap? Like, you could just show him and say, no, because like he knows what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I
like,
do. I have a lot of pictures and stuff. I don't have anything like right in front of me.
Okay, all right. Well,
but
go to Immaculate Comics on YouTube.
this is one of them I'm working on next here. This guy. I'm gonna take the tape off of it and clean it.
Put closer to the camera. Show people what it is. Ah, Batman
Nice.
book.
Yeah.
Nice.
So I'm gonna clean that up.
Here, I'm gonna blow you up here. Let me blow you up. Okay. Let me
Oh yeah, and here's another one I'm going to do soon.
Oh,
Hold on. Let me take this off. Hold on now. Hold on. Here, try it again.
Or actually, no, I already did this one. This was it's already been done.
Sorry. Let me come here.
There we go.
Try it again.
And that's, if you don't know, the first appearance of Mary Jane is in this book. I'm sure that everyone here knows that first. And yeah, I've got a lot of good books. I have there's an X-Men here. I'm working on, these are ones in my pile. I have this guy I just worked on there.
Now, and for those who don't know, when he says he works on them, you take the solution that you sell, right? And you make the pages go from yellow to white.
Oh, sure. Yeah, definitely do that. And then I'll remove the covers. You know, I'll wash the books in a washing machine that I've built as well.
That's
fully immerse them. Yeah, I do things that if you haven't seen would chill your spine. If you see me take apart like an X-Men 1 and then soak it in a bathtub or something, it's disconcerting if you haven't seen it before. The first time.
It is insane that we have we've done that. So, or you've done that.
I want to share this real quick too here.
That's a Steve Ditko autograph, an authentic Steve Ditko autograph.
To me,
he showed me that. That's pretty nuts.
And I have a John Romita one here too. We'll say that for another time. I don't want to overwrite your whole.
No, you're good. You're good. Hey, this is the Spider-Man Council. This is all about Spider-Man fans. And
you can't not show your Ditko stuff if you've got it. You know.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So
he doesn't sign a lot of autographs, so getting even the eyes and the face drawn for me with my name is pretty cool.
Hey, it's all, I get it. Trust me, I get it. So anyway, today, Spider-Man Council, we have a small council tonight, but that's fine. I probably won't have to be, put the fire and brimstone on people too much because but either way, Javi's got to get out of here a little bit sooner. So we'll get this a little fast and furious, but not like the franchise because I'm not a fan. Again, you haven't already. What's that?
You have your gavel ready?
I don't have a gavel yet.
Man.
I won't need a gavel.
You didn't unpack the gavel?
Well, it's over there. Well, I can grab one. We'll wait. So anyway, today we're going to talk about 2099, Spider-Man 2099 properly. So, I'll kind of throw it to I think who might be the biggest 2099 person on here, which ironically is going to be Javi, who has to leave earlier than usual, maybe. But I know I'm assuming you're probably the biggest fan of all four of us. I'm just going to take that guess and gander, if you will.
Okay. I'll take that badge.
Okay, hey, that's fine. Yeah, that's not a bad thing by any means.
Yeah.
But tell me your history of being into this character and kind of what you've been doing with it lately, or not lately, but your history with it, and what your feeling is kind of going into Across the Spider-Verse, kind of with your history.
I think we covered this on a council meeting 4 months ago when we talked about alternate Spideys. So I'll try not to bore people again with it.
Trust me, I don't think we get new people all the time. I don't have to worry about repeating yourself.
I would say a certain generation's first experience with him wasn't 2099 #1, but was Amazing Spider-Man 365, which it was the last backup story in that 35th anniversary issue. Mm-hmm. Dating myself, but I was in high school, and it was just like shocking, to say the least, because he was like the exact opposite of the Peter Parker Spider-Man,
Yeah.
where Peter would make jokes as Spider-Man, but be serious as Peter. Miguel would have snarky remarks in his civilian identity and be deadly quiet as Spider-Man for a good portion of it. So the preview of this show was basically like the first 4 or 5 pages from issue 1. So that definitely was enough to whet my appetite proper, because here was a whole new Marvel universe at the time. Like they'd done the new universe and it kind of came and went. And then 2099 was like their next big push. And to have like Stan Lee creating a new character was like a big deal. Launching with Spider-Man and Doctor Doom was, for me at least, it was exciting. It was 1992, so I was in high school. And then right around that time too, we started to get into like the Clone Saga, and Peter wasn't necessarily acting quite like himself because they were still trying to figure out like who was going to be the real Spider-Man going forward and all of that. And the world of 2099 was, I don't know, it was somehow really comforting to me when maybe Amazing wasn't quite what I was familiar with at the time. Even though Spider-Man 2099 is not Peter Parker, there was enough familiar elements that I really enjoyed seeing the future take. And I was a fan of Peter David from his Star Trek books and his Star Trek comics, and not to mention the fact that he did a really understated run on Spectacular Spider-Man in the 80s. And yeah, Mike Templeton, you do need to read Spider-Man 2098 to even remotely understand. No, just kidding. For those who don't know,
that's amazing.
So I really enjoyed the character. There were certain moments in like issue 4 or 5 that really shocked me as a kid, where I was like, I don't know if I like this anymore, but I got over it. And it gets a little muddy towards the end of his run, and things did not go to plan across the whole line, and it just kind of caved in on itself unceremoniously. And he would pop up here and there, off and on. They had like a 2099 World of Tomorrow book that tried to bring everyone together in this post-apocalyptic future world,
which is written by Warren Ellis, I believe, or at least led by Warren Ellis, who wrote.
I know he did some of the Doom stuff for a while.
Yeah, and we actually really side note. Chris and I actually reviewed his a good portion of his Doom 2099 run in the original Comic Binge podcast only, which we'll eventually put those episodes up to listen to at least at one point. But yeah, they weren't bad; they were pretty good. I mean, Warren Ellis is a little bit of a hot topic, but yeah. I liked his issues.
And then we had like some weird relaunch post One More Day where it was 2099 like Time Slip or something, but it wasn't. It was like kind of rebooting everything, and I wasn't interested in that, and I skipped it. And then Peter David came back, and they relaunched the book, but now Miguel was stuck in the present day, which I was starting to enjoy. And then Spider-Verse happened, and then New Initiatives happened, and all of a sudden he had this funky costume. And while I was enjoying it, it was missing the flavor of what I liked about it in the future, because here he was stuck in the past. And not only was he stuck in the past, but stuck in the time with Miguel, or with Peter and Miles. So there was a lot of spider people in New York at the time. And it felt kind of weird. And I was really excited for the Nick Spencer run where he was going to bring back the character, but they changed his origin again for that, and that wound up being like the first crack for me in the Nick Spencer hype train. I was a little disappointed by that, but that all brings us up to today. I was really excited that he had a cameo in Into the Spider-Verse with Oscar Isaac, and just a little nods to, like, they had Alchemax in the movie being responsible for his spider. And of course, in the video game, he's an awesome skin that you can play as.
Yes, it is.
And I am here for the movie. I'm pretty stoked. I mean, June is my birthday month, and there's nothing but like all my childhood favorites are here in June. Got Spider-Man to kick it off, Transformers, but not the Bay Transformers.
You're a Transformers guy.
I'm not Neil. But I loved him when I was a kid, and I tried to follow the comics in like the Dreamwave era. But it's not something I'm. Like, you get to a certain point, and I'm lost. We got the Flash, we got Indiana Jones. Like, June is my movie month, so I don't know which one I'm more excited for between Spidey and Batman. I mean, the Flash and Indiana Jones. But
I'm not excited about Indiana Jones at all. But that's just me.
Gotta have faith, man. But
that's just me.
I got to interview Rick Leonardi once for the Spider-Man Crawl Space, and we talked about the black costume. We talked about his work on 2099. So Miguel O'Hara has a very special place in my heart, and I'm curious to hear your hot takes now.
Oh, you'll get them. You'll get them. And for those who don't know, Peter David and Rick Leonardi are the primary. I know those inkers and letters, and I don't disrespect them, but
Al Williamson, man.
Oh yeah, Al Williams. Oh my God, how could I forget Al Williams? I remember being like, Al did this, and Al's a legend. What the hell am I thinking?
Yeah.
I feel foolish. Thank you for reminding me, Pizza Time. I appreciate that. Yeah, I wanted to say this right now that the Rick Leonardi and Peter David, like, those are bigger names in comics, and Rick Leonardi is just. We'll get to him in a second, but yes, like that's the art. We don't want to forget these aren't just no name people working on this book. These are pretty prominent names at the time. So. Rick, I'll go to you, my brother. What's your history with Mr. Miguel O'Hara? And I'm gonna go grab a gavel. I think I'll be right back. But go ahead and continue.
Well, I remember when the book came out, and I remember hearing that Stan Lee was making some other futuristic world. And I remember, this is the book I bought. I have two of them I bought at that time, and I was 21. I was in college. And I remember when the New Universe came out, and that was in response to the Marvel Universe of the 60s no longer being the world outside our window. Things had changed. There were, the world was different. The technology was changing. And so we really couldn't draw any similarities, but it failed. It flopped. And I was concerned that the same thing was happening 7 years later. It felt like it, because comic books were changing quite a bit. Mm-hmm. And then I bought this, and also I noticed, and I went back and looked at some of my early the 250s of Spider-Man, is that Miguel O'Hara, even at the time I noticed this, looks exactly like Peter Parker. That's Peter Parker, by the way, from issue 253. He is Miguel O'Hara. He didn't draw him any differently. They're the same person. They even wear the same style of clothing. They're just, but where one zigs, the other zags. Like they probably sat around a table and said, "Hey, look, you want to make them the opposite of Peter Parker." They made a list of stuff that Peter Parker does, and they just did the opposite. I think what might have happened, because it's pretty clear cut. They have their own Siri or Alexa in there. That's the Lila thing, and
Lila.
That was interesting and odd. I was curious at the time, because here's another thing that happened. I had read Amazing Spider-Man Annual, I think 20, that had Iron Man 2020 coming back to the past to visit Spider-Man. And they had a lot of Star Wars stuff in it. Like, Iron Man was flying an X-Wing fighter, and there was like a Star Wars speeder bike in that thing. But it was remarkable how much stuff they got right. And when I reread it in 2020. I thought, you know what? I think I'll read this in another 35 years and see how it works. And I did. And I was sort of thinking to myself, I wonder what they'll get right and get wrong. Of course, I won't be around in 2099. But it's already apparent they got some things super right with this, like Siri, Alexa, hologram thing. They missed cell phones entirely because they keep leaving each other voicemails.
Well, they have holograms. Why don't they need cell phones?
But they had to go check their hologram and go home and listen to it.
Yeah.
They didn't have it with them. Right?
Which is, but you know what? But to be fair, what if that was like people were rejecting like having access to each other all the time? That their personal hologram assistance is like a thing to come home to. Like, you know what I mean? Like, that's like the more acceptable thing at that point in society.
And it happens with we wearing a cocktail dress all the time. Yeah, that's what.
Hey man,
Well, you can change it.
You could
Yeah.
change it. Miguel
Yeah,
didn't want to
exactly.
change it. You know where his mind's at. So
That's true. Yeah. Well, it was fun for me to think of what they got right and what they got wrong and like what kind of thing. And well, the Peter David story, like the writing was really good. It's never been, I didn't like the mid 250s Rick Leonardi art because I felt like he really did a great job on covers when he wanted to, but his art really had a lot of like the subjects were drawn really well, but the background was just a mess. There was nothing in the background but it felt like lazy drawing to me art because it just was nothing there. A lot of I wanted the richer detail that I was getting from JR Jr. before, and I got later, and he just seemed to not have it for me. And it propagated to this book too. Like there was just not. If you look in the background, the characters are all fuzzed out. The buildings are just a couple of lines, and so I was a little disappointed in that. But the story was super engaging at first. I thought, wow, they're coming up with new characters right away. They're going to build this new universe. Maybe this is going to be what I wanted. But then it just sort of went. Kind of like started diving down from my sensibility. It was like, where is this going? Well, the women all look the same. I couldn't tell Casey from Dana.
Yeah,
like
I agree with that.
You know, I was
There
like,
was one point, yeah.
which person is this? I can't. And if there was no context clues, I couldn't tell what was going on. And then the story started to wander too. It started to like get a lot of stuff in it, and it started to go a little crazy for me. But to be fair, Spidey was nuts at the time too. Like Carnage was in it, and I think about the time Carnage was a new character, and Spider-Man was kind of a darker and grittier. So I was like, the whole thing had turned me off a little bit, And I'm a person. I've read every Spider-Man book that's ever been published, and I own all of them. I've had them all, and that one was fun, really exciting at first, and just kind of like for me, that was my
Interesting. Okay. That's. So were you excited about the introduction to him in the movie Into the Spider-Verse? Or were you?
I haven't seen it. I'm dark on Into the Spider. I didn't know he was in it until you told me. I removed myself. I scrub all information from any spoilers. Look, I'm a guy who flew 3,000 miles to see the first Spider-Man movie 3 hours earlier. And I dress up for most of these movies I go to, and I block spoilers entirely. I see no media. I filter all my content's filtered.
Rick, I'm honestly flabbergasted. You have not seen Into the Spider-Verse. We must rectify this immediately. All right, you're gonna have to.
No. Sorry, I meant the new one. I was
like,
no. Into the Spider-Verse I've seen. Sorry, I meant the trailer for the new one.
Oh yeah. I'm not. I am avoiding trailers too. I hate trailers these days.
But yeah, Into the Spider-Verse. Yeah.
No, I mean like for Into the Spider-Verse, when they revealed them at the very end of the movie, was that going into this movie, are you excited about Miguel? Are you not excited?
I'm gonna reserve my excitation because I've been on highs and lows with this character. I've gone up and down. Sometimes I'm really excited. It's engaging stories, and I'm like, okay, this is just pandering. It's just trying to make extra money. It's a cash grab. Obviously, he's got to travel through time at some point. Sometimes it's done really well, and sometimes it's not. To my sensibility, anyway. And the character has so much potential because we all want to see the opposite of Peter Parker, right? We always want to see what he would do, which was what Venom was supposed to be, right?
Now it's Chasm.
Yeah, now it's Chasm. They're always doing it, right? What if he wasn't so optimistic? Like, what's that guy who just unleashes and becomes,
exactly,
does all kinds of terrible stuff. And sometimes it's great, and then sometimes it flops. Okay, to be fair, Amazing Spider-Man's the same exact way. He's a staple. He's
exactly.
Stay, This is just another one. Every time they make another Spider-Man, it dilutes my Spider-Man a little bit more.
I mean, I don't know. That's a whole different podcast, you could say. That's a good conversation because I think there's arguments for both sides of that. But we'll save that for later. All right, pizza time, aka Adam. I see how I reverse that just for you. Give me the goods on your take on Miguel in general. When your history with the character and then going across Spider-Verse.
I'm trying to remember. I think I know I have that Tom DeFalco DK book. That might have been the first time I encountered. It's a history book. It's got all that stuff in there. It's like the Spider. It was like the Spider-Man Bible for the late '90s.
Oh yeah.
It had all the alternate history stuff and stuff about the Clone Saga and the origin and everything. And there was a 2099 section. That might have been how I first learned about the character. Maybe. But
Okay.
I got that like I got the action figure, the Toy Biz action figure that came with the first issue. So I was familiar with the first issue more or less, at least like, the art. Because I'm
Sure.
always like looking at the art of these things. I would read them like sometimes, but I would usually flip through them and look at the art.
Same.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that kind of led me to go into the bins at the comic shop and look for whatever they had there, and I bought some of the issues after what we read, which is like when the house goes against him, his house goes against him, which is like Lila's fault or something, and then he's in like the VR world where he has the cool rollerblading costume.
Good Lord. I'm so glad I
Uh,
did not read these.
so I was honestly thinking about reading through to that, but I didn't this
I
time.
don't
But
blame
anyway,
you.
I picked up that stuff because I was like, oh cool, like Spider-Man 2099, I'll pick these up, And
Mhm.
I remember them being cool, I guess, and
Armando.
that was like my earliest stuff. And then I played Shattered Dimensions and
Chris will love you for saying that.
yeah. Well, he asked who played it, so
Yeah.
I played that. I didn't play Edge of Time. I heard Edge of Time was kind of not as good as Shattered Dimensions, so I skipped it. But Shattered Dimensions was pretty cool.
I get those two confused all
Um,
the time. I think I interchange them. Sorry,
yeah,
Chris.
Shattered Dimensions had the 4, and then
Oh,
Edge of Time was just amazing. Our regular Peter Parker
that's right.
and Miguel
That's
2099.
right. Okay, you're right.
Yeah.
Okay, you're right. Okay.
And yeah, Edge of Time was Peter David, and Shattered Dimensions was Slot. Yeah, I'd say I guess that's my history with the character. I thought it was cool that he showed up at the end of Into the Spider-Verse,
Okay.
and yeah, I'm looking forward to see what they do with him. I don't know if I like. I mean, it seems like they seem to be framing him as like
The villain.
the main
the
antagonist,
Yeah.
Yeah.
which I'm like, okay,
Didn't get that
Sure.
impression from the first movie, but yeah.
yeah, exactly. So I'm wondering how they're gonna play that out, I guess.
Commander's
mean-
not gonna like me in a little bit, I think.
Uh-oh.
We'll just
I
leave it
have
there.
I have a question for Captain Clow in the comments.
Do it, dude.
Chris, who was your favorite 2099 actor in a video game? Was it the Shattered Dimensions, which I think was the Amazing Friends Spidey?
Yeah, it was
Or was
Dan
it
Gilvezan.
Christopher Daniel Barnes in Edge of Time?
I'm gonna say it's gonna be Harris. I think that's gonna be his favorite actor. I'm gonna go ahead and on a limb and say that.
No,
I
for 2099 specific.
Sorry,
Yeah.
sorry. Yeah. Okay, sorry. We'll find out.
Well,
So, like Javi, you kind of emphasized. Well, one thing we all learned back in the day, if you were like a big, following the comics and things like that on a religious basis, like I was, and it sounds like a lot of us were here, except for Adam, because he probably was born. But
Yeah, I'm like
you're like 22.
this
Whatever
series
this
is
is.
this series is like a year younger than me.
Shut
yeah.
up.
Wow.
That's so nuts, dude.
This series is basically as old as I am.
That is insane.
This character is as old as I am.
So I remember like seeing the promotions for this, right? Like, but and that's when and I knew like when that amazing, was it 365? Yeah, 365 when it came out with the hologram cover. They had the first the key issue alert, what if you want to say, 365 being the first appearance of 2099, which is basically just a preview of this comic right here. And I fell in love with the costume. I thought the costume was incredible. I'm assuming Leonardi is the one who designed it. Again, I don't know for sure. Either way, it's a great, unique design. I love it this to death. And I think that's, and let's be real, I think where it starts and ends is really with the costume. I'm just going to say it right now, because I think we'll get to my hot take in a second. 2099 costume is just off the chain, ridiculously looks amazing. And Leonardi's art is incredible. And we'll get to that in a second too. But when I saw this, I was really into it. And I remember I bought this first issue. Okay. And I was like, oh, jazz for it. I bought all the 2099 issues at first. I bought the Doom. I bought Ravage. I bought Punisher.
Wow.
all that jazz, right?
Hulk, was there a
That's a-
Hulk or not? Maybe I
That's a
misremember.
commitment.
Hulk was later. Hulk was like a year later, but he
Oh.
didn't have his own title at first. It was unlimited 2099.
Unlimited, yeah.
Yeah. So when this came out, I bought it and I was like, all right, let's do this. And I'm ready to see like just lots of costume Spider-Man, and didn't get it.
He's there for a bit. He's there for
Just for the first like 3 pages.
yeah.
Like, I mean,
That's-
okay, and here's the thing. And
they're great pages though.
They are great pages. My good friend Justin Bolger will tell you that if it's all about comics and costumes with me, and it really is, and that is really why I want to read it. I mean, I know we need to have like development and conflict and things like that, and have him be outside of the suit. But I mean, if you're paying money for a kid, like you want to get your money's worth, which is like a predominantly costume Spider-Man. Whatever. Mike, get out of here. Just kidding. I like you, Mike. Mike's cool, but no. I wanted more costume, and at the time I was like kind of what you said, Adam, or maybe Adam, you had mentioned it, that you kind of just looked at the pictures, didn't read it necessarily.
I would like half read maybe.
Yeah, and that's what
there's stuff that I really remember reading is when I picked up some of the Revelations back issues because I'm reading this like Tom DeFalco Spider-Man Bible thing, and it's talking about like the Clone Saga, and I get like the last issues of Revelations, except for the big Peter Parker 75 one. But I remember reading those like over and over.
Right.
But anyways, that's a different topic.
So I was perusing, like I wouldn't really read them. I just kind of glance at them, and again, the storytelling of the pictures and the pages and the layouts, that's what would tell me the story. And I just wasn't engaged with it then. And I collected, I have almost a whole first run of comics, of single issues over the years before comics, key issues became huge. Right, Rick? Before the dark times, before the key issues, but I say that because it's just like back in the day, I used to get this for like a quarter, In fact, I got
they printed so many of them.
well, right, and I got this for 25 cents at Half Price Books. Right,
I should have bought this when it was in my shop's dollar bin.
Exactly. Now it's like it ain't going no dollar bin now, yo.
I think I spent, because I had them all and I had to sell them. So when I wanted to reacquire this issue when Leonardi came to Comic-Con, like in 2019, I think I spent like $10 on eBay to get number 1.
No way.
Yeah.
I paid
Right.
$1.75 each.
Yeah.
Fine. I got 2 of them. Yeah.
Yeah, I had one back in the day, but I think it just got so destroyed because it started peeling at the edge. And I think I just threw it away because it was just destroyed at that point. But I don't bag and board my books back in the day because I just read them. I resented like the whole like I don't read comics. I just collect them.
I would bring them around in my backpack. Like
I know dude.
doing
These get
sleepovers at my grandpa's house with my cousins, and I would bring like my comic collection with me, or like some of them I'd bring with me, and good times.
Yeah. So when and I've always liked the character, and I'm this hobby when they brought him back and they brought in like the weird new costume when Peter David brought him back. I ironically love that new costume. It's so bad it's good, in my opinion. It's so ridiculous. I love it.
I feel like they kind of how he looks in the movie is kind of a little bit based on that costume, you know what I mean? But with the like classic look. Well, because I think Chris Anka designed that costume, if I'm remembering correctly.
Yeah,
and he did do a lot of the character designs for the movie, so that's maybe why
He's like fusing the two together, maybe.
a little bit, maybe.
The new costume looks decent. So
I'm going to push back on you a little bit, Paul.
Let's do it.
Because I totally get your complaint about the lack of the costume, like especially in that first issue.
Yeah.
I remember thinking that as well back in the day. It's like very lopsided because you get Spidey at the front. It was a Spidey bit we'd already seen in 365, and then the rest of it's kind of like his origin story, which to have that origin be 3 issues long, basically back in 92 was kind of a big deal. Like reading it now from 2023, like it's nothing to
Yeah.
read it in one sitting. It just feels like a complete story, and to me it flies by. If you compare it to like Ultimate Spider-Man a decade later, where Bendis took a 15-page story, if it's that, and made it 7 issues. Like, we're in the land of decompression now, so to sit here and read issues 1 through 12 like didn't really feel like a lot of work, and the storytelling for me worked really well in this, like trade paperback type setting.
Sure.
Um,
Yeah, and so here's here's my hot take. Okay, so I had read a little bit, and I in full disclosure, I love Peter David, and I know he's going through some hard times right now, and I think he's got a GoFundMe going on right now after his stroke.
Yeah.
Go support it. And Marvel should be ponying up a lot of money to help him pay his bills, because they owe him a lot of money, in my opinion. And he's a great writer. I like you, Javi. I love his spec work. His Sin Eater stuff is great.
Yeah.
I love him. Like, I think his Hulk run is an all timer. And so going into Spider-Man 2099, I was, I remember not loving it as a kid, but I didn't really read it, right? So when I decided to take this on for the Across the Spider-Verse kind of tie-in, I was like, okay, I'm ready to dive into this. And I gotta tell you, if it wasn't for Rick Lunardi's gorgeous artwork, this would have, I don't know if I would have gotten through it. This was bad, in my opinion. Like, this is kind of bad. Like,
All of
straight
it?
up. Now, go ahead, Javi, go ahead.
I was gonna say, it, like a lot of comics in that era, like, it suffers from tie-ins, and you would think it would be kind of insular to itself, but like the Fall of the Hammer thing made me really confused, or not really confused, but there's definitely things that were getting set up and mysteries that were being established, like who's the head of Alchemax, and who certain figures are that don't get answered, and that we never really got answers for correctly. And even the identity of the Green Goblin, I got changed from what Peter David wanted to do with it to what eventually happened. So there was definitely a bit of editorial interference.
And totally. But I think just the essence of what Peter was doing with, because it definitely felt like he condensed, like, the origin taking place over 3 days, like nonstop, was definitely a choice. And it was just what it doesn't really resonate with me. I liked it. Listen, it wasn't bad. Let me rephrase that. Because there's worse comics out there to read. It just, for Peter, it was disappointing, is what I should say. Very disappointing, because I love Peter David so much, and it just did not connect with me. And I love Spider-Man. There's parts of it that I really liked, but there's parts of it that just didn't hit me. It was weird. And it's weird for me to say that, because I love Spider-Man so much, but it's like, man, like these aren't hitting me like I want them to. And I think part of that is that the character Miguel is just not, it just, with a brother, I think there's too many characters that they're trying to bring out.
I can agree with that. I can agree with that. There's too many characters.
So,
there's pros and cons to it, but yeah, there's a lot of characters orbiting around Miguel, and I think it's a little too much.
Yeah, I think they should have just focused in on Miguel and just his girlfriend, and that's it, and maybe just have a little bit of the brother thing. But they bring in those other parties to kind of, like, add more interest. Go ahead, Rick.
It's got the burden of having to establish not just a new Spider-Man, but an entire new universe.
That's true. It's very true.
It's not just like another Spider-Man series.
Oh my God.
Where all the background players. Like, they have to be familiar enough to, like, some of the archetypes, especially when it comes to the villains. But then we're establishing this whole new society of what the future is like, and how it's run, and what changes have been made. So that's like a lot of lifting that this this book has to do, in addition to making you care about Miguel O'Hara and, like, his immediate circle.
So Rick, I want to throw this back to you because you're like, you've done all the reading of Spider-Man comics, and when you read, I'm assuming you read some of this before the show, but I'm assuming I don't know how much you read or what you didn't read, but when was it like you? Because it sounds like you're kind of mixed on Peter David as much. I'm a little more of a fan than you, maybe it sounds like, but
I liked his Hulk run. Was like incredibly good. I like the story. I didn't mind that he slow played it. I didn't mind world building because I wasn't going anywhere. When this came out, I had already been collecting comics for 13 years, and I figured I had another 40 years to go. Right before I always told myself I would stop collecting Spider-Man at like issue 1000 when it came out, which is I'm pending now actually. So I think I'm into
3
this.
years from now.
If this goes okay, I'm into it. I want him to take this time, and I want me to not be in a hurry because I want this world to have been built, and I want it to be rich. Take your time. I'm not going anywhere. It cost me $1.75. What am I doing with my time? Right. I'm in college. I'm not really doing anything exciting with my life. I'll read this if you pay me back and you give me a good, rich story, which he really did. I think he really did. I think the story was compelling. I think that the characters were compelling, that it was a little busy for sure. And it was a little busy in the mid 90s or early 90s, especially when everybody was grabbing books. They had huge boobs on the women and guys with muscles that were as big as houses everywhere. And everything was an issue number one, and everything everybody was buying books to save them. and they sucked. The stories were awful, right? They were just so much crap was coming out, and crap was flying everywhere. Like comics had just really nosedove like super bad, and everything had a hologram or a double cover, and people were lining up and they killed Superman. All kinds of crazy stuff was happening at this time. For someone to bring out, now I'm just thinking contextual, like where I was at in my world. Sure. For someone to bring me on a plate and build me, we're going to build a character and we're going to give him a story and relationships and problems. And he's not going to be your Peter Parker. He's going to be very different. And I'm going to build this world for you. I put so much effort into it. Please have a look. I was like, this feels really good. Because they did this with Peter Parker in the 60s, back when Captain America was fighting a monster of a week, or he was frozen, but you know what I mean? The other characters everything was just something. It's like a lot of showy stuff. There were two stories. They took Peter Parker, they slowed him down. They gave him problems. They gave him a girl that he liked in Betty, and they gave each villain a backstory, which was really unusual. They gave him a reason that they were bad. They slow played Spider-Man in the 60s, and they slow played 2099 in the 90s. And I appreciated it for what it was.
Wow. I was not expecting you to say that, to be quite. And by the way,
Paul, I like your brother.
Dude, Javi, I don't like this. I don't like how this is turning against me. I don't like this.
This is the thing, Paul. Whenever you're like, oh well, I've got a hot take here, and it's like, well, that means that he doesn't like the books, or he doesn't like something about.
Again,
about something.
Seriously appreciate it. You saying you donating, like any donations, I don't ask for them because I feel weird asking. So the fact you donate out of your own kindness, your own heart is very, very nice. So honestly, it means a lot. Thank you. Really quickly, I want to get to right here. I mean, to be quite fair, I mean, the cheesecake factor is real. It's kind of unfortunate, to be honest, but it is. I mean, listen, if people like that stuff, I'm nothing against it. It's just not.
I don't think this
I would want to do. Yeah.
I don't think this was one of those books. Like the page that you have.
No.
The page that you have up right now is like the beginning of the objectification of Miguel O'Hara.
Yeah.
Like it becomes like a running gag, like how tight his butt is, and how like I don't know if I think it's the Kelly Jones issue where she's talking about Spidey's butt and she's just like picturing grabbing it with her hands, and like it's focused on her hands in this panel, and like he is definitely the sex object.
Here's a hot take. I like Casey more than Dana.
Word. That dude.
I'm gonna tell you.
I don't know if that's a hot take though.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm just saying, like,
probably
not, because I'm just saying, like, Dana, she's no Mary Jane. She's just kind of like, there's not really much to her character in this, I feel.
Well,
No,
There's that
I
little-
would agree with that.
There's some
Yeah.
like, there's a little like, oh, apparently she used to be with Gabriel.
which is weird.
Yeah. And they kiss actually when
Which is
she's
more of
stunning,
a-
which was stunning to watch, right? Yeah. I think the
was-
first time we see her, right, she's exercising with the
with
Lila.
Alexa or something,
Yeah.
right? And there's some like stuff about her. She like do the rest to firm up your planks.
Yeah,
or
and they cut
something.
her
They kinda
off.
like
Yeah,
sell
yeah,
her.
yeah.
Yeah.
But then, so we get I had the idea that she lived with him because she's exercising in his house. You usually go to someone else's house to exercise, right? And so it took me a while. It took me many issues to understand what their relationship was, and that she worked for some other company and used to date his brother, like slowly. But I didn't mind it too much. But I was super confused as to who they were, and I thought Casey was Dana. Like,
Word,
I
yeah.
thought
Yeah, there
changed
is-
her name or something because
there's
she was
definitely
also
like
with the brother Gabe. She looked exactly like her, and I thought, oh, she calls herself Casey when she's with Gabe. She calls
oh
herself
my
Dana,
god.
but
That would
slowly
be
resolved that it's two
that'd be
separate.
nuts.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Double life.
Yeah, that's
Dana
crazy.
did have
man.
a few different looks in like the issues that we read for this.
Yeah, well, yeah.
like her
well, that's the thing.
style changed a lot.
She randomly has like a different hairdo in the first
Yeah.
half of one issue, and then in the second half of the issue, it's back to what it was.
And she had a black eye for like the first half of one issue, and then it vanished.
Yeah,
for the
and
last half.
Yeah,
Because that
So-
was the flashback.
yeah.
Oh,
He's
that's
flashing
what that
back a bunch. Yeah,
Yeah.
because he does because it starts off with him being Spider-Man, and then it flashes. Then that's where the book flashes back in the first issue, and it goes into like how he becomes Spider-Man, which is also very weird. Listen, it's not. This is not a bad book. Like you said, like it's not the worst thing I've read. It just
Hey,
was
it's-
disappointing.
It's not what did Peter do?
Yeah. Oh God.
We didn't have to wait a year and a half to see the origin of Spider-Man
Yeah.
2099.
You know,
So-
Bobby,
Or issue
you
20
had to bring it
coming
up,
out.
didn't you?
I don't know if you guys know what happens in 26 yet, but somebody spoiled it for me, and I couldn't care less. It's the stupidest thing I've ever heard in my life. Because
I
they've been
mean,
priming
it's-
us for this for months. It's just dumb.
Yeah.
Yeah.
and it's a whole Rick. It's a whole thing. It's
It's a mess.
it's a mess. But the hilarious thing is when I heard it, I'm like, oh, weird. That's all. I honestly was just like, oh, that's crazy. Like she'll be back. You know.
She-
that's
yeah.
all. I don't.
But it's the principle of the thing.
You know.
I would
you know
argue.
you know what it kind of reminds me of? Not to go too off topics. We're out of Spider-Man Council, but really quickly, it's my show. Do what the hell I want.
Of
It
course.
reminds me a little bit of Nick Spencer and Captain America. Remember a little bit when everyone's like, "He made Captain America a Nazi." He blah 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 blah. It's
Yeah.
like guys.
It is one of those like things like, oh, Doc Ock hijacked Spidey's
Right.
brain, and Captain America's apparently been a Nazi for decades. You know, it's that kind of a thing
Yeah.
in a way. It's kind of dumb shock to just sell issues
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
It used to be that the
So-
covers were like false. Like they'd have like something brazen on the cover happening, and you'd open it, and that would never happen inside. You were pulled it off the rack to read it, and you think this never happened. But now they're leading it with rumors and spin. Like they
Yeah.
you don't see anything. You just hear that something, and they want you to go and buy 5 different covers of it. There's going to be 6 different versions of
Yeah.
it. They're pandering to our weakness, which is to try to find
Our
some
weakness.
interesting key book and then buy
I
100
call it
of them.
strength,
I'm a
Rick.
sucker. I've got like 5 of them coming of the 26. Does he
look,
look?
I
Doesn't
can't.
Lila,
can't
doesn't she
tempt
look
me.
like a man? In that, doesn't she? Her face look like?
I wouldn't say she
Yeah,
looks like a
you know.
man.
Yeah, she looks like a man
Well,
to
I
me.
mean, obviously parts of her don't look like a man. But I mean,
well, yeah, that's it's very obvious. But there. Listen, the whole Lila thing, which they already hinted at, because I read up
Yeah.
to 12 issues, and I was like, I'm good. And
Damn.
yeah, man, it's rough out there. That's all I gotta say. Well, I think it didn't
Hard out there
help
for a
that-
P thug.
Yeah, it's right. Pete Thug, he got. I don't have time for that. I don't have time to bleed. Listen, like the thing is with this series, I didn't move during this whole thing, and I've been like slammed to the
Right.
brim, and it's been really hard to like get time. So I had to like read these during work, basically, which was crazy. I couldn't even believe I could even read these during work because like we were so slow. So I was like, oh sweet, I can read these. And Javi, if you know we share occupations in some ways, so to say that I was very, very beneficial. I'm glad I was able to read these during work because they were perfect work fodder. But but like here's the thing, and thankfully Javi sent me a ton of great artwork from Rick Leonardi to basically to showcase here, and I'm so glad you picked a bunch of stuff out that I liked actually. Like I loved
cool.
this splash. This splash.
I
is
forgot
just-
about that one. Yeah.
Also, the first splash in the first book is awesome. He does really great splash pages and covers. I think a lot of his interior work is honestly, I think it's just lazy.
See, I disagree. And
But it's
I'm-
also you have to keep in mind, like, he's trying to get the book out on time monthly. So
yeah, I don't. Okay, I'm gonna push back a little bit on that, brother Rick here, because let me show you something. There's a couple again. Javi picked some good layouts here. I'm gonna throw, like, to me this is cool. Like there's some really creativeness here with what he does, and I think there's interesting things here. Because the one thing I would say about Rick Leonardi that I'm really appreciative of, in my opinion, is that he's able to be simple but still bring in like an interesting like thing with what he's doing. It's not boring to me. I mean, in my opinion, it's very simple though. It's not like trying to be elaborate or anything like that.
Well, these
But
are
you're
all
giving-
great pictures, but there are examples of panels where there's like nothing going on in the background.
That's fair. That's fair.
Think about Ross
just-
Andrew in the 100s early. Like that dude would draw
Sure.
Spider-Man jumping from building to building. He'd draw 50 Spider-Man, all like
Yeah.
light red and blue, going around, and he would draw every window, every person on the street, and he would still get them out every month. Like that
But
guy
you know what? But here's the thing I would say too, is that with Ross Andrew, and I love Ross Andrew.
he did have background inkers. He had the background inkers, and he
Oh.
had usually Frank Giacoya or Mike Esposito inking the people themselves. So there was a lot of collaboration on that, from what I understand.
I didn't get that. That makes a big difference. Yeah.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of pencilers in comics in all eras that depended on background people and things like that. Like there was, it's not uncommon, and I don't think it's necessarily a detriment. Because Ross Andrew's a great artist. I love Ross Andrew. This is no
Yeah.
BS. I straight up love the guy. He's an underrated artist. But I would
Yes.
also say in his layouts, and I remember reading these back in the day, is that it was also kind of confusing when the way he would put things out, because back then they're heavily steeped in the Marvel method. So he's pretty much putting this out, and they're just going to take, for the most part, be like, this doesn't really make sense. It's hard to follow, but we're just going to put it out there. And it was hard for me as a comic book fan being like, where am I going with this? Like, it's not clear where the eye is always supposed to go. Not all the time, but it was consistent enough where I noticed it with his layouts specifically. Leonardi doesn't have that a problem. He's very simplistic of what he does in a good way, I think. But again, it's a taste thing. But I think but Rick, I also think or Adam, I think you brought up a great point, is that he's amazing at the splash pages, at covers. I think Rick, you had mentioned at covers too as well. He's a great cover artist, splash artist. So I think you got something there, but I don't think there's bad. There's parts like this where there's just something about the way he draws this character is to me this is the definitive drawing, not this one particularly, but I love this picture, but his version of Spider-Man 2009 I think is the definitive of the character. I don't think anyone's ever been able to come close to it, in my opinion. There's a certain muscularness to it that I think is missing, that even in Spider-Man, he's more scrawny. He's a lot more ripped, which I'm not sure if Miguel was ripped before. I don't think he was, but I definitely appreciated this version of the character.
That letterbox is cool. I want to say
it's-
one thing too about the
Sure.
costume, and then let get your guys' opinion on it, because I want Javi's especially, because he's been a big fan. Here's that the face mask, for me, the Spider-Man, what they've done for years is take the lines on his webbing and the shape of his eyes, and they artificially made them squint when he's concentrating or bow down when he's sad. They took some
Right.
license with the shape of those lenses and emoted Spider-Man different, so you could tell what he was feeling, right? And it's really almost impossible to do that with this costume, unless, how do you guys feel differently?
It's a good question, guys. Go ahead.
I forget who was in the chat that mentioned it. Maybe it was Mike.
Oh my.
The skull thing was a choice at the time.
Mhm.
I was kind of confused by it when I first saw it. It's like, why is he the Punisher? And then you kind of see throughout his evolution as a character that he was more deadly than Peter. But the second issue explained it, that it was a
Mhm.
part of the Day of the Dead festival, which
I love that.
He bought a costume at a party, right?
and the first thing that I loved about it was that it was made out of unstable molecules fabric, which
FF.
I knew from the FF.
Yeah.
But it was one of those things where, for me, it was really one of the things I really liked about the character was that he was half Mexican,
Yeah.
which my dad was born in Mexico. So being just a generation removed from that, like, it was cool to see that kind of representation, because I never felt like I quite fit in when it came to that kind of thing. Just
That's really cool.
society. So I liked having a Spider-Man that I kind of shared a background with to a degree. And actually, this was like the first time that I had heard of like Day of the Dead and all that. And in high school, I
Really?
learned a lot more about it through my Spanish class, but it wasn't a tradition that my dad really celebrated or brought with him. So a lot of it, a lot of what I learned about it started with this, and then I picked up more about it in high school.
That's really
And
cool.
kind of reincorporated it, into like the present day stuff for my family. But so to have that that connection with that he had with his heritage being part of the suit, I really wound up really loving that. And then it was the 90s, so I was like, of course it's a skull. But then there was also that edginess of having the claws and the sharp edges that
Mhm.
it's kind of like a Batman effect almost, where he just looks more dangerous. And I appreciated, like you were talking about, the eyes. They always kind of gave him that angry look, but the fact that the spider motif was worked around the eyes as well, where you kind
Mhm.
of had the four legs on each side. Like,
Mhm.
it's a variation that we don't really see a whole lot of when we see all these other spider people. And the web foil, that's not a cape, but it's not web pits like that.
Yeah.
That was really cool to see.
Yeah.
And like, I got the hot toy of it, and there are a lot of people who are complaining that, well, it's not accurate, it doesn't have the web foil, but it's like, it's accurate to the game.
What do you people want?
And the game didn't have it, so that's why this figure doesn't have it. But
Well, and he's in a world where people already have known of a Spider-Man, which
Yeah.
mysteriously isn't around. So he has, like, there's some expectations when you adopt the name Spider-Man. There's some expectations from you that you're a hero, right? And
yeah,
I think he ran into that a couple times.
Yeah. No, it's really, really quick. We'll kind of start wrapping up here. This has been awesome. Like, this has been a great, like, it's a small council, but not lesser by any means. We had some good conversation here. Rick, you got some great stuff on that. Honestly, that was cool.
Okay.
I think that, I'll kind of wrap up for myself and let you guys all wrap up, and we'll kind of head out here and promote our shiz. But I would say that, it's an important part of Marvel Comics, because Marvel was trying to do something different. And this definitely, I think, kind of ushered in some ways, a lot of different things, right? Let's bring up, Javi, we've talked about this on the Batman on animation podcast, where we talked about Batman Beyond, and how this literally, I think, had a huge play into Batman Beyond, Batman Beyond. So, I mean,
or even Raimi.
Really,
I want to say, let me say something here.
Please.
When I read that first issue again, it, like, I had, I was familiar with the first issue more or less, and like the experimentation they were doing and how he gets his powers, but it clicked, like, what they do in the first issue with, like, oh, we're gonna test the gene splicing thing, and Miguel's like, well, it's not ready yet. I don't know. Like, and I thought
back to Fortnite.
that, yeah, I
You
thought
hear
about
that music in your head, right?
I was like, damn, it's like, I knew about the organic webbing and everything. It's like, oh yeah, like, he's got this is like the first Spidey that has organic webbing, but it's like, they kind of, you could say that, like, oh, if they wanted to take some inspiration from a comic for the whole Green Goblin origin and the first movie, it's kind of in here. we have to test this thing, but it's not ready yet. But it's like, okay. And then it doesn't work, but then it does work for our guy here.
Yeah. And, I think that there's, though I don't love the stories, I think the costume is fantastic. And I think not only did it pave the way, I think for Marvel doing really drastic, crazy things and taking chances, and obviously leading, I think, to Batman Beyond and different things I didn't even think about, Rami and everything. The other thing I would say also is the fact that this probably ushered in the alternate with, I would say, Scarlet Spider, but this came before Scarlet Spider. So let's to say this. So this really helped usher in people getting used to different costume Spider-Man people that now that's, if you look, I go back to that PS4 game, and Rick, I don't even know sure if you ever played the PS4 game or not. I'm assuming you have, but
I watch my kids play it.
yeah, there you go. That's fair. That's same difference. But my point is that there's, when we grew up, guys, Spider-Man only had 2 costumes. Well, if you want to count a few other ones, like the third, like the Fantastic Four bag,
Spider Armor.
Yeah,
well, but even I mean, I'm talking about before, let's say up to the 90s. That's all you had. It was basically 2 costumes
before the Clone Saga. Yeah.
But then Clone Saga, but this kind of helped usher in a different look of Spider-Man and kind of really helped the alternate costumes, because one thing I would say is that instead of people rejecting it, people accepted it way more than they did rejected it. And as you can see in the comments here, more people are like, oh, I love Spider-Man 2099. And if the costume sucked, let's be real, I don't think anyone would like it. I don't think the story, in my opinion, I don't think the story is that strong to love it. I think the art by Rick Leonardi and the costume itself is why it's so good. So, I think it's important for a lot of different things. I don't love the story. I don't think it's terrible necessarily, but it's just not. Yeah. But I would also say that it is important for the Spider-Man mythos, obviously, but for a lot of different reasons other than just existing on its own. So I'll throw it out to people. Pizza time. What we got when we wrap this up? Any last parting thoughts, and where can we find you?
I honestly think this is my favorite redesign of a Spider-Man costume, just because it's different but familiar. Like Javi was saying, you got the spider motif around the eyes. The skull is like a choice, but it almost kind of is spidery, I don't know. It's just it's a very strong design. It's a very cool design. And you're right, Paul. Like if you didn't have a cool costume, people probably wouldn't care. But he looks great. And I just think it's a very creative, unique take on the character that's totally different from, he could have just been wearing something with a bunch of webbing on it or something, but no, it's a bit more minimal, kind of like the black suit, the symbiote black suit.
The black suit definitely is an influence on this. Let's be real.
Yeah.
In a good way.
I mean, it's the same guy.
Yeah,
it's true. Yeah, you're right.
Worked on both.
Yeah,
you're right.
The black suit's convoluted, but he was instrumental in what we wound up getting.
Right. Yeah, true.
The stories, I think it is an interesting take on the character. It's totally different from the original, but it has little familiar things, he hesitates with, well, the thing, what I realized as we're doing this show is this series seems, it's interesting if kids are reading this back in the early 90s, because this seems very more adult? For a what
adult.
Yes, it's very adult. There's all this corporate stuff, corporations are fighting. There's
people eating people.
Yeah, there's that. There's a lot of there's rebellion and class warfare kinda, and there's drug abuse, and there's caring for an elderly family member in a way that's not Aunt May, in a different thing.
There's abuse.
There's
little abuse in it. That's Peter David though. And I think Peter and I've gone on record saying that I like it that kids were allowed to read this and you don't dumb it down for an audience. And I don't think you would either, but it definitely, when you do that, you do run the risk of alienating somewhat of an audience, you know,
Yeah.
like my parents, to a detriment, in my opinion, I love them, but did not look at what I was reading too often. And I don't think they would have cared about this. And I don't think it was a big of a deal, but you know what I mean? Like, I would say that I think they probably should have held back with me a little bit, maybe put a little more action in there in general.
Right.
Because I think the third issue is my favorite of all of them. I think that third issue is fantastic, like all the way around. It's because it's all just a pure fight.
Yeah, he's just
It's
fighting. He's chasing around,
great.
chasing through the city and fighting. Yeah.
But it's building character and it's
Yeah.
interesting and it's entertaining. So I just want to throw that out there. So Pizza Time, where can people find you at, sir?
Enchilada Legs on Twitter. Spidey Experience on the Spidey Radio Network, and here Spider-Man Council on the Comic Binge and other assorted Comic Binge shows.
That's right. Adam's a G. He shows up on the reg. He knows what's up. But as always, I really appreciate Adam and always his support. So Adam, I love you, bro. You know that. We got Javi, the El Corazon, the heart. He is the heart.
I need to get my shtick down like Peter Vera. I am at Javi True on Twitter, at Up to Speed 5 on Twitter, which we'll get to that in a reason, at ASM_classics on Twitter. And you can follow my reviews for the JamesBondDossier.com, where I'm reviewing 007. There's a new 007 miniseries that just started.
I'm reading that right now. I love it.
It's awesome. With Philip Kennedy Johnson writing. My review for issue 1 should be up sometime the next week or two, whenever David gets a moment to post it. I co-host season 2 of Amazing Spider-Man Classics with my son Jack. We're going through the Lee Ditko stuff. As soon as I get the chance to edit some of these things we've recorded, we'll get them posted for you. Reviewing on BatmanOnFilm.com, I'm reviewing Catwoman, Batman: The Adventures Continue season 3, and Batman: The Brave and the Bold, which that first issue by the first Batman story by Tom King and Mitch Gerads just blew me away last week.
I need to read it, man. I've heard nothing but great. Everyone's talking really about it. That's awesome.
And then my own personal passion project, that's just mine. Thank you for watching, Andrew, is The Flash Up to Speed with Wally West.
Hell yeah.
It is a YouTube show, and I'm just basically starting with issue 1 of his run from 1987, and I'm just going to keep going theoretically till we run out of Wally West comics, which hopefully won't be for a while now that he is back and headlining with issue 800 2 weeks away. And then we start a new direction under Cy Spurrier.
Which, by the way, I'm probably going to pick that series up. I'm going to give it a shot. Like, it's a good jumping on point, and I love Cy, and I want to be there for my boy Javi. So I'm like, you know what? I may have to start picking this up so me and Javi can talk about some Flash. So yeah, just know you are a reason why I'm picking that book up. You alone, cool. Sir. So
well, thank you.
And people out there, if you haven't, like, Javi is like one of the all-time ballers out there, and if you aren't following any of that stuff, you need to get on it. So, like, because his Flash stuff is legit. And just the coolest dude out there. So go support Javi.
Thanks,
He's a rad
man.
guy.
I appreciate that.
Well, you know that, man. Come on, bro. And by the way, it's going to be next month. I shouldn't call it Flash month. It should be Javi's month, because Javi's going to be on majority.
It is my birthday next month.
I mean, yeah, well, there you go. And so freaking Javi's going to be on like majority of the episodes.
Do we want to tease what we're going to talk about?
Oh yeah, I'll just throw it out here right now. So we're going to talk about Flashpoint, right?
That's
we're going to talk about
stupid Flashpoint.
Stop it. I haven't read it yet, so just stop it. And then we're going to talk about some the Flash film, which is going to be very exciting, I think, for all of us. I haven't figured out who else is going to join us for that, but it's Javi's at least. He has to be there. So it's Chris, me, and Javi, and maybe just be the three of us. I don't know. We'll be a lot to talk about, but we'll figure that out. And the last thing is, because I think Flash will be huge. I really do think so. Javi's going to come back and give us Flash recommendations, which you and Chris, because obviously Chris will have a lot to say about it too. That's going to be a barn burner, in my opinion. I'm just going to shut up and just be like, you guys just go, and I'll just kind of tell you to stop and then go to the next person and just kind of go back and forth for a while. So yeah, it's gonna be a
Yeah, it's
rad
going to
thing.
be fun. Yeah.
And not to mention Across the Spider-Verse review, which we'll be doing next Tuesday. So, which I'm not sure if you'll be there or not. I don't think you'll be there, but either way, you'll be there for most of the month. So that's all I care about. So that's all I care about. So Javi, thank you so much for always putting your time and effort in this. And last but not least, my new brother, Rick Morgan. Final thoughts on 2099 and where people find you.
Yeah, well, I would want to say that I did recall when I was reading Spider-Man Noir that the Vulture ate a character.
Yeah,
I was thinking about that too,
and I reflected on this series. Like, oh, I've seen that somewhere before. Makes sense, right? And then
Vulture.
Oh,
it's in the name.
Now, then I sort of like, that's where I saw it before. So there are a lot. I think this influenced a lot of further work. This broke a barrier that people were afraid to cross, and it allowed people to go.
That's a great point. Yeah.
And stories and other things that happened. It also was brave to have a guy. He didn't really web swing a lot. He just kind of glided on a.
That's a good point.
Glider. Doesn't really web swing because you can't really web swing when everybody's got motorcycles in the air. It doesn't. Why would you do it? Why would you just get a motorcycle that flies, right?
Damn, you just blew my mind with that. Damn.
He doesn't web swing basically at all. He grabs people, but doesn't do it.
Yeah, he grabs it. Yeah.
And it's coming to the PS5 game.
I don't know about that, but I'm thinking it's just a reskin of the same game, right? So he has.
Well, they showed the new footage last week, and there's a new traversal system where it looks kind of like Tom Holland in Far From Home when he's got like the web wings that lets him glide. That's their new way of getting around New York is
interesting
on web wings.
I wonder if that has to do with the fact that the 2099 doesn't really. I mean, if he influenced it, like, why would you lead the web swing anymore? They just don't do it. Like if you could fly, why would you have a web shooter, right? Apparently everybody has a flying car. So
it puts the Oscorp suits spider glider into new perspective.
Yeah.
Well, there's a little bit of that. I can see. That's a whole different podcast.
But yeah, I have a website, immaculatecomics.com. I'm at Immaculate Comics primarily on YouTube, but I have a Facebook and Insta. It's handled by other people. I don't primarily post my own stuff, but other people do on Instagram and Facebook. But I do my own stuff on not Facebook, on YouTube. I hope you watch it. I don't do much about the stories and the reading. That's rich with smarter people like Javi and Adam, you guys that do better work than I do. But I work on the scientific front of the stuff, and I enjoy it. It's really fun for me. I help other people produce economy in their collections, and which is
it's cool,
fun.
man.
It's pretty
cool.
And I'm a super collector. Paul's seen some of my books in my house.
If you guys see me on Twitter, I posted a picture of me holding ASM 15 and Amazing Spider-Man issue 1, and that is from his collection. So that was me holding that. So that was his private collection. So that was pretty nuts. So
I'm pretty serious about it, and I have dressed up at many a Spider-Man movie. And I've had people come up to me and say, "Look like Spidey hit the donut shack on the way here and stuff." Before. So I've left all shame behind, you
gotta have a thick skin, right? You gotta have thick skin.
You really do, but you going into it, you just know that. But anyway, that's where you can find me, and that's my focus. I'm honored to be here. I'm happy to meet Adam and Javi. They seem like really great guys and well versed in their Spider-Man mythos.
Oh yes. And Rick, you will definitely be back, obviously. Sure. We'll have to tell our very unique story eventually. But also, besides that, have you back on and talk more Spider-Man. So you'll definitely be back on the council and whatever. And also, it might be fun to do a comic binge collector issue episode where we can talk about collection and kind of showcase you, even though you trump my followers, and I'm not sure what my little pitiful amount to yours will matter, but
6,000 or so. I don't have a lot, but medium.
Yeah, but the thing is, what's cool is that there's it'd be kind of cool to kind of focus on that, because the one thing about the comic binge is that I try to be evergreen as far as like it can be seen at any time, and it's not like it's time dependent, even if someone who watches this doesn't have to be watching Across the Spider-Verse for us to talk about Miguel, it's just that's what the whole point of the binge is, to get people to read more comics, right? So And if you want to read more comics, as we're wrapping up here, the last thing I'm going to say is very easily, if you want to read these comics and you don't want to spend money to seek out the back issues or it's too expensive, I got some cheap options for you. You can always spend a couple of extra bucks at Comixology Unlimited or whatever, which is not the worst thing in the world. But you can also go to the Marvel Unlimited app if you want to read these comic books and spend, their monthly fee or a yearly fee. And it's a pretty, legit thing, right? I would say. But you want to be a true baller and a true shot caller, do yourself a favor and download the Hoopla app, yo, because this is where it's at. Ryan Lauer himself, the Batman Book Club, one of the best podcasts out there. He taught me about, when someone asked me, who taught you about Hoopla? I'll say, Lauer taught me. So, because
spelled like lower.
Yeah. But Ryan Lauer from Batman Book Club talking about Hoopla. It is through the library system. I was signed up through the Seattle library system, and you can go read free comics on there, all digital, and you don't have to pay a dime. And they have a lot on here. They have a ridiculous amount. So if you want to read comics out there and you get on a budget, which is, again, times are tough, I get it. Go out there, get Hoopla, read them on your iPad, your phone, your computer system, whatever. It's all free. There's tons of crap on there. It's awesome. And if you haven't already, if you watched this far, which I can't believe you have, if you have, you deserve a medal. Go please, again, subscribe. It makes better sense. So
I'll say one last
nice.
thing is that, Paul, I followed you before I knew you were my brother.
that's so weird.
That's awesome.
That is the I still can't believe it. I can't believe that.
Super weird, but it's definitely true.
I remember when you followed me. Because I'm like, oh, who's Immaculate Comics? I thought
I was in Ethiopia, right? When I first
because I looked it up. I'm like, who's this guy? I'm like, oh, he's in Ethiopia. That's weird. That's a whole different story too, right? So I mean, so it's so life is crazy. Life is crazy. But anyway, thank you guys so much for coming on, and I'll go ahead and end this on, as always, as because Chris Clouds in here, is read